I've already documented the way that I came from being a straight classical musician through to playing for different people, moving into musical theatre, and then vocal coaching. You're on our accreditation programme for singing teachers and vocal coaches, and I want to ask you what was your journey to get from being a playing musician to a vocal coach?
Interesting.
I love that question because I hope that this resonates with a lot of people, because it's also one of the reasons why I almost didn't join this course, because of imposter syndrome, which is something that you've talked about in your podcasts and your blogs and all the rest of it. So I was brought up as a classical pianist. I actually started on the Yamaha electronic organ, actually, when I was a little girl, 2 manuals, pedals, couldn't sit on the stool because I was too short. So started there. Music colleges didn't accept electronic organs, so I then had to be transferred to the piano, classical pianist. So within the first term of being at the Birmingham Conservatoire, we had to buddy up with either an instrumentalist or a vocalist to learn how to be an accompanist. So the vocalists looked quite nice, and I took a bit of a shine to one of the vocalists. And so I decided to be with the vocal department. And there, I spent the next 4 years. I didn't spend a lot of time with the other pianists or in the piano department because I became fascinated with the voice. And I started being a repetiteur for the vocal workshop. We would have these amazing opera singers visit the conservatoire and run masterclasses. And as the accompanist and repetiteur, I'd be sat accompanying, but I was digesting everything that was being told to the singers. And I was like a sponge, and I was going, this is fascinating. Oh, I better play now. But I was just literally wide-eyed and loving it. And I felt that when I was accompanying these singers, I was connecting with them. I could feel where they were moving. I'm quite an empathetic coach, and I was an empathetic teacher. It's something that you and I have spoken about briefly as well, Jeremy, is that you can tell if a singer is tired or if they're under a lot of stress or if they're emotional, because you've got this connection that can't be explained to anyone else that doesn't that doesn't play the piano or doesn't sing. It's something you can't put into words. And so I was accompanying everything from Schubert Lieder, which is just very programmatic. When you're doing Winterreise, you are the babbling brook and things like that on the piano. And I just became fascinated how you can change your vocal tone to reflect that. So I watched and digested 4 years worth of operatic training. I did a bit of singing myself, but I wasn't a singing performer. I was a pianist. So when I left the conservatoire, I then started doing musical directing, which is you have to do some vocal coaching because you've got a body of people in front of you, everything from soloists to duets. And I just found that I was able to get good results really quickly because I'm empathic. And if someone isn't expressing something with their voice, I was almost taking it on myself. And then I go, okay, well, I could fix that by doing that and then bounce it back to them. And that's how I was getting results. I thought, actually, I'm quite good at this. So when you feel that, it encourages you to do it more. So I then people said, well, do you do singing lessons? And then off we went. So I've never had a singing lesson in my life. That's not true. I've had 2 singing lessons from Jeremy because I joined his slow coach. It's the first one-on-one vocal coaching I've ever had in my life. I've always just been able to feel what's going on with people's voices. I've done a lot of research myself. So I've read books, I've looked at anatomy charts. So I found out about the voice because I have this passion and this inquisitive nature about the voice, but no one's ever taught me about my voice. So I got to the point where 20 years later, I'm happy to say that I feel that I'm good at what I do. But there was always this underlying feeling of someone's going to find me out, that actually I wasn't trained as a vocal coach or a singing teacher, but here she is, parading herself as one. And so you do have this nagging feeling going, I've never had lessons myself, so should I be one myself? And that's where I stop and where I then start my journey with you.
That is so interesting because I have to say, even I didn't know that. I've heard you sing, so I know that you can sing. And you have a lot of facility as a vocalist, as well as having a lot of facility as a musician. And you've got fabulous ears, which I think are super important when you're going to coach singers. But it's fascinating, isn't it? How much of a singer do we have to be in order to be an effective teacher? And I actually think having musical knowledge and understanding of music and an understanding of vocal music and an understanding of singers is far more important than being a good singer.
I agree with that. I think what's
So that could shock loads of people. They go, we're not doing that course.
No, it's fine. Bye. I think what's so interesting is because you have a high level of musical skill and you have musical understanding in lots of different areas, and that you've gone or you've found yourself in different arenas. And every time you move into a different arena, you take in a new load of information and you catalogue it and you work out what's going on in there. And I think in a way that's just as important, if not more so, than being able to produce the sounds. I think what's so interesting is that you can produce the sounds having done all of that without necessarily having thousands of lessons to take you through those things. So for me, I like working with you because you're very similar to me, which is always nice. And also you have the ability to take in and actually reproduce and try things out, which is very useful. And I would think that's going really rather well on this course because we give you lots of things to do.
I think that's how I've become a singer. I sing for bands, so I'm a front woman for bands. I do perform, I've done session work, I've done recording studio work, so I can sing. But I think the reason I can sing is just what you're saying, is I've assimilated all this knowledge over the years and gone, okay, how can I develop my own voice? And I do want to point out that kind of saying this to you on camera, being recorded, saying I've never had a singing lesson before, and I'm very aware that this goes out on social media. I really, thinking about this interview, thinking, do I actually admit it? Or do I skirt over the subject? And I want to out myself. And because I want to say to other teachers who are in the same position to me as finding themselves as being vocal coaches and singing teachers, maybe if they came from a different background, that actually, of course, you can be a really valid vocal coach and singing teacher. You really can. And it doesn't make me any less of a vocal coach because I didn't have formal training. I had a whole lifetime of musician training. I was a pianist, I was a flautist, I was an organist, I was an accompanist. I've got all of these skills. I just didn't ever have one-on-one singing lessons myself.
Do you know, I think we probably, I won't mention any names, but we probably have at least one other existing accredited trainer who never had a singing lesson. Was a very experienced singer, did a lot of gigs, writes their own music. Is not a great music reader, writes and produces their own stuff, and they are a fabulous trainer. I've seen the results of their work, and I can remember them asking after they'd done some of our early training courses, like you did the OSTTs online. And they said, well, I'm not really a music reader. Do I need to be able to read music? I haven't done all that theory stuff. You can be a really good musician and not a great reader, can't you?
There's a place, that's the point.
Yeah,
There's a place for you. And I also think it was something I wanted to pick up that you said earlier, which is when you moved back down to Devon, you wanted to essentially to create an arena for people to be able to do what you weren't taught to do. And I think that's a common theme with a lot of people who are on the accreditation program, is that they want to create a universe that allows other people to do things that they didn't quite get. And I'm holding my hand up to that as well.
Oh, well, for me, this is why we run this course.
Yeah, it's taking the experiences that you wanted to have but didn't and going, now I'm in the position that I can actually teach them. And therefore I can provide people with something that is very powerful.
And equally, there are people who have had 20 years of one-to-one singing tuition, excuse me, themselves, that they may not inherently be a good teacher. You know, just because you can, it doesn't mean to say you can teach. I'm very passionate about that. I coach new teachers through Yamaha. I coach new teachers through, we're obviously developing new examiners. And just because you can sing or just because you can play doesn't mean to say that you can teach. And it just so happens that I feel that I'm an effective coach and an effective teacher. Great. So what's the problem with that? Absolutely. You know, there are other people who've had tuition that don't have those skills.